Welcome to the Team of One podcast, where we share the story of the solopreneur by exploring different ideas from different voices so you too can find a way to live life on your own terms. My name is Moe Choice, and in this episode, I spoke to the OG of sleep management, Nick Littlehales. He talked about the importance of self-belief, the challenges of stepping away from job security on his quest to find his passion. Nick emphasizes the need to focus on genuine improvement rather than relying on gimmicks and fads. He reflects on his experiences, the impact of his work, and the importance of listening to one's inner voice. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Welcome back to the Team of One podcast. Today we are joined by Nick Littlehales. Nick, who are you?
I'm classified as an elite sports sleeping coach. I fell into that quite a long time ago in the late 90s. I've been making it ever since. But the world of sleep and the importance of sleep has become quite a big thing. So it's been an interesting journey going from when nobody thought about sleep at all, and now we all think about it every day.
And when I did think about it, Nick, I used to think I just couldn't sleep well, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. I can't do anything about it. And you actually helped me change my thinking on that, and you really helped me get to grips with it. Thank you for that. Do you identify as a solopreneur?
It was probably only when you mentioned it to me when we spoke on our journey, Mo. I didn't really know what that one, what that meant. But I suppose, yes, because I've endeavored to, monetize and to grow my world in the sleep industry. But, I wouldn't say failed. But I'd also say, sort of not live that dream. But I've actually been really happy with my journey. So I'd probably classify myself as a solopreneur, yeah.
And obviously, if we had time to go into your story, it's clear that you created your own path coming out of a standard career job and really you did things your own way and the way you wanted to do them and found out how you wanted it.
Anybody sort of listening to it, I don't really know how that happened. I think it's a consequence of a number of things, Mo. How I felt when I was a teenager, how I felt in my 20s, what I was trying to deal with in my 30s and my early 40s. And it's sort of, I think I was always, the sort of industry I was in, I was always fascinated by, it didn't make sense, right? And I sort of think my sort of background intrigued me. If something doesn't make sense, maybe you should try and make sense of it. And that's really what I tried to do. And that's how that journey started. And you read the book. I know you did, Mo. So that was my interpretation of trying to make sense of this subject that was so important to us, a massive health pillar. We spend more time doing it than most other things we do in our lives. And so it was so important, but nobody could actually sort of show me how to do it. And my father was an engineer and he was a car mechanic, and he was, that's understating it massively, because he invented petrol injection for Formula One. He changed how engines worked by injecting petrol into pistons. So I think it was sort of, there was a little bit of that me and my father used to stand in the garage and sort of go, how do we do that? We'll work it out. How could we do this? Or maybe they haven't done this before. So it wasn't like, Bill Gates or whatever in those sort of days. But it was sort of, the industry made no sense. So I tried to make sense of it, Mark.
And take us back to when you realized you had to let go of the safety net of a salary and kind of that realization that, okay, I got to make this work somehow without knowing. What was that like?
I think that's a big question. Of we only hear about all the successful startups, don't we? We don't hear about all the unsuccessful startups because they get to that door and they know how to open it. It's got a handle on it, and you just have to push it down and pull. But that little bit, you know, scares you because I don't know. I felt I felt that there was something I needed to do. I didn't know what it was really, to be honest, but there was something in me that said, you need to go and do something with this. But I wasn't quite sure what it was, but I stepped out the front door to find out what that was.
Like a deeper calling.
I, I suppose yes. I think you just felt it was okay on the other side of that door,
Yeah.
um, and you were prepared to step across it. Um, you can say that now you've done it. Everybody can say, "Oh yeah, just step across the door and you'll be fine," and
Yeah.
all your challenges and all that sort of stuff and everything else. But I don't think I actually thought about it. I didn't think about it. I just decided one day that I need to walk out the door and go right instead of left. That's all.
And I often tell people that you have to cut the cord. You have to lose sight of the shore to really go on an
Mm-hmm.
adventure and find things that you couldn't have found otherwise. And I think that's a big struggle with solopreneurs is that they refuse to cut the cord. They want that certainty.
I
And I
know.
think it,
Somebody, somebody actually, somebody actually said to me the other day, it's a bit like sort of a Columbus or Captain Cook. They sail away from the shore, and all they've got is an horizon, and they don't even know whether they're going to find land. So, and I went, I wasn't like that. That's ridiculous. He said, but it is. It's
it's a
you
fortune.
can't you can't put it in a box. You can't sort of go, oh, this is what's going to happen. You'll find this and you'll become that. You just have to leave the shore.
Agreed. Um, there's usually a different number of questions, a different number of answers to this
Mm-hmm.
question, which surprises me because when I ask it, I usually think it's only going to go one way, which is how to make money.
Okay.
What was the biggest struggle really that you had to overcome in the early days?
To believe in myself.
Hmm.
I could waffle on about that for hours more, but I think it was just it was just inner belief. It was just do you believe in yourself? Do you you're going to come across people who are far more intelligent. You're going to come across things that you can't really manage that well. You're going to come across things that are going to really challenge you, and that's all on that sort of negative side why people don't open the door. But you're also going to come across things that where people are actually going to say, "Wow, I want what you know. Wow, I love your aspect on this. I think it's amazing what you're doing." So it's that sort of little journey of knowing that the majority of time you're going to come up against things that you're not capable of dealing with, but they will be counterbalanced by lots of things that you're more than capable of dealing with. So maybe it was just, I felt like I could do it.
What was the point, maybe the turning point, where you knew this was the right decision?
I was in a room having a glass of something bubbly, maybe champagne or something. I don't know. I was in a room at an event that had absolutely nothing to do with my industry career. It was actually a football event at a football club, and I was standing there simply because I was the main party of this big company who'd written a check out to sponsor a football club. So I happened to be standing in a football club's conference room, and I happened to be standing next to Sir Alex Ferguson. And it was just at that particular moment that I, when asked the question, what do you do and why you're here and all that sort of stuff and everything else, I just took the opportunity to ask a very sort of provocative question. Was, do you do anything about sleep in the world of football? And he looked at me and went, no. And that was it. It was sort of like, well, if you don't do anything about it, surely there's something we could do about that. Now, I didn't have a clue what was behind that question. He didn't have any clue what was behind his answer. But in the middle, between me and you, Mo, having a chat, there was a void. And it was just like, there must be something inside that void that we could take advantage of. And that sort of, that moment wasn't created. It wasn't, I say that, I retract, because I made quite a lot of decisions that put me in that room, right? So I think in hindsight, it was sort of like, why is a bed company and a sales and marketing director of a big bed company sponsoring a local football club in the late 90s? Why are you doing that? There's no financial rewards. There's nothing. It was just maybe, it was all about the staff in the factory because they were all Oldham fans and they were working, doing their stuff. And I thought, well, it'd be a really nice thing for them to see if we did that. So it wasn't financial, it wasn't, but I suppose looking back on it, what I was basically trying to do in a sort of almost subconscious way, like when you open the door and you jump out the other side, in a kind of subconscious way, I was looking for a sort of a place or an environment or a space where I could, examine what I thought about, examine my thoughts. And that was probably the moment where I just took the opportunity to go, chronotypes, 90-minute cycles, sleep, 30-odd%. It's very important, but you do nothing about it, and so why don't we go into that space? And I think that's really one of those little challenges is you can talk about it, to yourself all the time, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, in the garden, and while you're walking the dog, you can talk about it all the time, and you can create all of these little things. But it's like, put yourself in a place where you're gonna either live or not live or die, but really have that self-belief that what you've got to say or what you've got to offer or how do you think something should be looked at, whatever it is don't be afraid to, in an old school way, because I'm a bit old, it was called Hyde Park Corner in London, where you stood up on the box and you gave your rant and had your say. And I think you need to find that space where you can have your say, but don't mess about, go to somebody who's going to give you a really good, a good aspect on what you're on about, and that just happened to be him. And I think any other person, because obviously I focused on sport, that was what I loved to do. So it happened to be a football manager. It happened to be in that environment. But I think wherever it is, it's just, just go and have that conversation with somebody that you feel is a real, inspiration in your world. And they will give you a truthful and honest answer. If that conversation had just stopped, I would have never carried on. Right?
Wow.
I wouldn't have gone to another football manager, Mo, or a the corporate world or private sector, public sector. I wouldn't have done anything like that. My only interest was, I wonder if I could help sports people do this better. And he said, okay. You know.
Love that. There's a lot of lessons that I talk about in what you just shared. I might even do a clip of it after we talk to give it more justice and to respect it more. But essentially, I talk about this all the time. You've got to offer something of value, and the only judge of the value is the market. And that's in many ways what you did there. You tested the market with an idea that might or might not be seen as valuable, and it was seen as valuable enough to keep the conversation going. And I tell people this all the time: just test, put it out there, see what the response is, see what the feedback is, and go again. It's also this idea that you had a clear mission. Can I help people sleep better? So you had a real clarity about what you were doing and what you were trying to do, and a real certainty that mattered. And I heard this, and I can't remember for the life of me who said it. To succeed in anything, you have to have clarity, certainty, and joy. And I think that comes across too, is that the passion and the enjoyment that you got out of doing this work, with the certainty that it was important and valuable, with the clarity of how you wanted to present it, I think that's how you created the opportunity. What would you say about that?
I think it's true. It's back at that moment in time, I had this very big mobile phone attached to a battery, something. So, we don't have the pictures, we don't have all the threads and the messages of the time to sort of try to remember it. But I think you're absolutely right. I think it was a combination of being very, very comfortable with your subject, so comfortable that you almost sound humble. You sound arrogant and non-arrogant at the same time. But also, I made him laugh. That sort of joy bit was, it's like, you spend 33% of your day lying on a mattress that your wife chose. Do you know what I mean?
I love
You know what I mean? And it's sort of like, it's sort of having that real sort of, you're so interested in the subject that you're not just interested in the big outcomes. You could win a treble, you could be financially earn millions out of this, you could sort obesity out, you can sort hair loss out, you can all of these big things. The big thing is that I just said, your wife chose your mattress. Do you know what I mean? And he goes, well, she did. I said, well, you're the manager of Manchester United. Do you want me to choose your boots, Alex? Shall I choose the boots for David Beckham to wear at the weekend, or where? So it's that sort of. I don't know. I mean,
I call that you're connecting with the truth.
Yeah.
You could do it through humor, you could do it through art, you could do it through writing, but essentially you've connected him with. Carl Jung has this. The psychotherapist has this saying that he said people stop believing in God because they stopped looking low enough at the detail, right? They were just looking up there all the time. And I think that's what you just described. It's when you make it real and tangible and everyday and something that anyone can get.
Well, you could see it on his face, that he just thought, well, we've got 25 first team players and their wives are buying the mattresses and pillows. He was not thinking about his wife or what he's sleeping on. He just went, that's nuts.
It's the player.
That's completely nuts. So I think it's, but it all comes about from being completely immersed in the subject that you love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard this so many times. You've got to love it, whether it's art or playing the piano or
100%.
whatever it is you've done. It's just, public speaking, whatever it is. Just, if you can sort of sit there and say to yourself, I love this, then everything else that you're sort of trying to say to somebody, to pitch, to sell them, you've got the door open, you've got the gatekeeper there, what are you going to sell? And if you're going to do all of that and you're able to find something in that moment is not pre-prepared. It's not planned. It's not written down in some strategy. You just go, here I am talking to that person. I'm going to say this. Right?
Yeah.
And that just comes from passion,
That
enthusiasm, motivation, joy of loving what you're doing, because you just know that's going to get them.
I love that. Yeah, I call it obsession. People don't like that word, but that's it's like it occupies my thoughts and my mind. And Alex Ferguson, what occupies his mind? How do we get one over the opposite? How do we get that extra percent, 2%?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so that just clicked, right? Your obsession with this, his obsession with
Yeah.
the finer details, and it just it's beautiful when that happens. I love that. I want to face forward now. You've done a lot. You've gotten to where you are. You found your calling or your path or whatever you want to call it, or you created your path, even better. What's next? What's next level for Nick Littlehales?
I think I had an interesting pandemic period, like a lot of people did. And as a result of that, I did a lot of reflection on, areas where I'd made, change, help people, and other places where that didn't happen because I was driven maybe too much by financial rewards. So where I am at the moment is I'm going to be, traveling in a sort of adventure mode. I'm going to see lots of places around the British Isles. I'm going to try and meet a lot of people, and all of that sort of type of experience, and be with the natural world as much as I possibly can. I'm far more. I've got lots more filters into how people investigate my life every day. So I'm far more particular about what I do. But the principle is I think my journey's been chopped up into a number of phases, Mo. I've been going bust almost every 6 months since 1998. There's always been something that comes along. And I think the one thing I've been reflecting on more than anything is that I have a lot of evidence that that the sleep industry, black hole, trillions of dollars. It's an amazing place, and people are taking real advantage of that. But I haven't found one postcode, one zip code on this planet that over the last 10 years of all the heightened awareness, the books, my book, books, podcasts, everything else, the reason why we're talking about, there's no evidence whatsoever that we've actually improved how our population sleeps and the benefits that go with it, which are amazing. And so that was really where I sort of stopped and thought, I need to do something. So, we're going to go on a bit of an adventure. We're going to try and, record that adventure because, I'm not annoyed, but I am annoyed because we've made some significant strides in this area. However, even where I live in West Bridgeford in Nottingham, UK, there is actually no evidence whatsoever that people's sleep has improved. And they've got trackers, they've got this, they've got supplements, they've got eye masks, everything going on. But the world has to look at this health pillar in a slightly different way. It sort of went from trying to make sense of it for us all, and now it's become this massive industry. And I'm waffling. I'm not making any sense. But the point is, I really want to show people that sleep is a very natural process. It's everybody can do it. Everybody can access it wherever you are on this planet. It's not Western centric. It's not about what mattress you've got. I can show you a way to optimize your sleep hours wherever you're sleeping, anywhere, anytime, on anything, with anything, all over this planet. And
Amazing.
I think that message has been lost. And, so I'm really trying in my own particular way. I'm going to write another book. I've got a Idiot's Guide playbook, which is how I coach an athlete. It's not about elite athletes. It's just, let's just be very careful, because we've got I've got grandchildren, and it scares me, because I'm old, right? It scares me what they're going into, and what I have to talk to them about, and all sorts of stuff. You mentioned social media, AI. You can do what you want. There'll be a different set of things tomorrow, Mo, that we're talking about. It's sort of their ability to be able to just stop and recover and give their brain the opportunity to do the things it wants to do. And if it can do those things, it'll give you an amazing recovery process. And by doing that, it'll make you the most resilient person you could ever be, whatever's coming in front of you. And that's really where I've shifted now. It may be a bit sort of, one of those little spiritual journeys, but, I really want to make sure that the next generation know how to recover, because if they know how to recover, they will survive. They will succeed if they know how to recover.
I can speak to this. When I came and heard your talk and I bought your book, 2016, I annoyed you at the end because I stopped you from leaving and I asked you like a bunch of questions. I waited for everyone to talk to you, and then I came with a bunch of questions.
It was fine. It was quite overwhelming because it's something I'd never done before. Somebody goes,
I
sit here and sign books. And I go, what? And there's people really going, oh, will you sign my book to my daughter? And I'm going, what is all this about?
Well, I'll tell you why I remembered this moment, because what I recognized was so many people struggling with their sleep, asking you questions, like genuinely, like, I need help with this. And I was the same. And I sat and I said, okay, I've got a plan that I've kind of written based on what you said. And obviously I'll read the book. And you looked at it and you said, it's a really good start. It was the night getting in tune with the 90-minute cycle. And it was what I needed to do before bed. And I literally focused on this for a year. I injected your book into my DNA, all the learnings, and I read over and over again. And it changed my life completely. I never thought I could sleep. I always thought it was hard to get out of bed. I thought it was always hard to get to sleep. I thought I could never dream. I'd never remember my dreams. I'd never, it was just not an enjoyable experience. And it's made me, I don't get sick hardly anymore. All my skin problems have gone. My hair got strong. Everything improved. And I write on my calendar, sleep is my best medicine. My calendar reminder every night to remind me of the impact it's had. So I wanted to thank you for that and tell people it doesn't matter if it's Nick or Matt Walker, or whatever his name is, or whoever you want to follow, or Huberman, or it doesn't matter, but just learn about it and implement the things that you're learning. I find that a lot of my friends, it's about the tracker. Oh, look, the tracker tracked my sleep. So they're more interested in the tracker than the actual improvement of the sleep. They're more interested in, you know what I mean? And it's like, you got it the wrong way around. And I think that's the point.
I could have made a lot of money out of the industry, if every third sentence I mentioned that you should get an 8 sleep mattress or a supplement from this company, and I don't have any problem with all of those things. It's just that, all of my early clients, we're talking about, how do you sleep for 3 weeks on a Tour de France in different hotels? Well, we'll take our fancy mattress with us. No, we won't. How do you coach somebody who's doing extreme mountain climbing and they're up at the side of a mountain, or they're on a boat going around the world? And so, well, we couldn't do that. So it's kind of like, there's some great things that you can tap into, interventions and products and things that do this and things that do that. But the principle is you can do this without any help.
Agreed.
That's it. If you get there,
100%,
then you can go, well, that's fine, because, whether anybody listening to this likes camping or not, what we know is if me and Mo wander off into the hills, by the lakes, by the streams, by the mountains, by the sea. And we spend a little bit of time with nature, visualizing, our brains doing all this and processing. Yeah, life's not that bad. If we go into the sea and it's freezing cold and we come out feeling amazing, and then Wim Hof will make some money out of us later. It's sort of like we know all about this, about plant-based foods, about how we eat, about how long we take to eat. Take twice as long to eat your breakfast. If it takes you 5 minutes to eat your breakfast, take 10. Just chew it and salivate it and give your gut a good chance. If it's that sort of cold water experience for your joints and your muscles, and how amazing it feels when you come out, is how much of that's going on. And I always say to people, if me and Mo went into the woods for a week and we come back into our normal world, is how far away are we from that? And if you can just make a few steps a little bit closer to that sort of natural rhythm of our sun and our earth and our planet, that natural rhythm of temperature shifts, those 4 phases of the day, that sort of melatonin, serotonin, that sort of what you eat and when you eat it, and and what you do and your chronotype, and all. If you come away from that moment and think, I'm so far away from that, I am so far away from that, why would you expect anything to work properly? And I think that's where my journey is now.
I love that. I wanted to ask you two more
Mm-hmm.
questions. Now that you've spoken about how you came here and what you
Mm-hmm.
did and what you set out to do and where you want to go next and what's happened,
Mm-hmm.
what would, if you could change one thing in your decision making or your choices on the way, what would that be?
Wow. I suppose when anybody's listening to this, and I listen to stuff and watch stuff and things like that, that might be a contrived question or answer. I think it's kind of weird, Mo. I think I would sort of caveat into one sense of listen to your inner voice, don't listen to anybody else. Now, that might sound a bit weird because you do have to collaborate, you do have to work with people, you do have to listen and move along it, but you have an inner voice. Everybody's got an inner voice, and you must listen to that. That's your only true voice. Everybody else, for the right and the wrong reasons, which is difficult to navigate, but if you listen to your inner voice, you'll navigate that properly.
I learned that idea of Socrates
Oh,
actually,
well,
and it's
I told him this in the first place, Mel.
the second last question actually I wanted to ask you was uh, uh, have you realized or recognized or remembered anything about yourself, about others, about the world as you had this conversation with me?
Somebody said to me that I've got a lot of empathy, right? And I didn't really know what that word meant, right? Do I think about other people before me? I don't know, but I think what I've certainly learned over doing lots of podcasts and talking to you today, and we talked the other day, and writing the book, which I never imagined I wanted to do. It explored things about you, and it's sort of like there's nothing wrong with thinking about other people more than yourself. And sometimes that doesn't go right. It doesn't work out for you, right? It's not a good business model strategy. But would I rather be ruthless and not care about other people? Can't do it. It's not in my. So all of these sort of things. It's sort of I'm very comfortable to sit down and go, it's not that I'm a nice person, or it's not that I do the right thing all the time. That's not the thing. But my grandchildren really like being in my company, right? And I think that's because I have those sort of skill sets and qualities about being around other people and helping them and coaching them. I think it's a really good thing to do, because that trust, being genuine. Wow, we're being challenged with that like mad now. What's fake, what's not fake, who you can trust. Whether you're actually real Mo or I'm actually a pre-recorded whatever. It's that I think a lot of the things that people underestimate is that when you're in a room with somebody else, is do they really get you? And I think that's what I've learned a lot about is don't try to project yourself. Don't try to make yourself just be as honest as you possibly can be, and you'll be fine.
Really cool. Words of wisdom, Nick Littlehales. Where can people find you? And is there anything you want to share with anyone?
Well, you've been punting it like mad, Mo, but it's still around. It's only a little book. There's not many pictures in it. It's only about £6 on Amazon if you want it. I've got a playbook in like so many different languages, a digital version, and that's just me, like you asked me before, saying, oh, if there's anything you're going to do tomorrow, just flick through this, pick something from it that you like, pick up a few 3 steps, a few takeaways, and start to get in your journey about stop worrying about sleep. And you can get all of that at sportsleepcoach.com. And that's, I always say to people, this is really easy, it's really simple, it's not complicated. And like you've been saying, is before you dive into anything you're going to do, trackers, supplements, this and everything else, you just stop and read that, look at that, take a little time out, and it's amazing. You'll wake up tomorrow morning and go, why didn't I do this years ago? You took the words out of my mouth.
It's exactly what I said after I figured it out. So I love talking to you, and I really appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to the next one already.
Okay, no problem, Mo.
The difference between surviving and thriving often comes down to a single shift in perspective. Maybe today's conversation sparked something for you, or maybe it confirmed what you already knew. I'm going to keep exploring what it takes to reach the next level. For more solopreneur stories, hit subscribe. And if you know someone who'd be perfect for the team of one, please introduce us on LinkedIn. See you next time. Peace.